Okay, so I just got back from seeing the Avengers. Oh my god. This was the biggest dump truck of diarrhea I ever seen in my fucking life. Gotcha. Is that what you'd expect me to say, right? Because I didn't like Joss Whedon's last fucking terrible movie, Cabin in the Woods. Here's my point when it comes to a lot of people have a real degree of loyalty to a director or a writer. For instance, like Ridley Scott or George Lucas, if I'm going to raise a specter there, or Steven Spielberg. Here's the thing. You can be loyal to a director or a writer, but it's not an automatic guarantee that it's going to be a great movie. It's a good indicator, but I think some people automatically go into movies going like, oh, Joss Whedon, it's going to be awesome, or something like that. That's not always the case. And in Joss Whedon's case, not usually the case, but anyway. The Avengers, great movie, great flick. I enjoyed it. I want to see it again. If you want the review in 5 seconds, there you go. Very entertaining flick. Had a blast. I'll start with the trailers, just because it's kind of tradition to talk about the trailers first. What few that I remember. The first one was for Prometheus, and Prometheus looks fucking amazing. And I didn't think it would. When I heard they were kind of doing a prequel to Alien, and I'm really not even sure how much they're going to involve the Alien mythos. It seems like it's about something altogether different. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like an Alien movie, and that's probably what they're going for. I don't know. The fact that I don't know is a good thing, because it says to me they're trying something new with the formula, or new-ish. And that can only be a good thing. And so I'm not the kind to always get excited about another Alien movie or another Alien video game. Because what happens is we get Alien Resurrection, and we get Alien vs. Predator, and then we get Alien vs. Predator 2. It's usually not a good sign. I think really we've mined the Alien franchise about as far as we can go, unless you do something new with it, which is what Prometheus kind of looks like. It kind of looks like it's a very mysterious movie. It's the kind of sci-fi I think sci-fi should be. And again, that's just from a trailer. I don't know. But it does look interesting. And so, if nothing else, it sold me on that score. Which is oftentimes enough to get me in the theater, like The Raven, which also not a good movie. Another trailer was Brave, which is I'm usually not in for animated features, so I really don't have an opinion on this one. It looks fine. And the last one that I really remember is I don't even remember what it is now. What is it? Battleship. This looked terrible. In one of those, I can pretty much guarantee when I go see this movie, you're gonna see a drunken vlog rant from me immediately afterwards. This one looks bad, like you see from me. Like you see. This one looks bad. There's no way it can be good. It looks like this is an insult to the Asylum. It looks like an Asylum picture. It looks like the kind of movie that would, and I think Asylum actually has that. What is it, American Battleship? This looks like the kind of movie Asylum would churn out, and it looks like the kind of movie you would see on the shelf next to a legit, like, Navy movie. Like, next to Tora, you see the sci-fi ripoff Battleship. It looks like a sci-fi original film, and again, that even is an insult to the sci-fi original flicks, because I've seen some good ones. But, I almost say this, I would almost guarantee you that the Asylum version, whatever it is better. Because this movie looks fucking awful. It looks, really what the indicator is to me, what really set me off is, this movie, it's raising the specter of a really horrible trend. And that trend is Michael Bay wannabes. Apparently there's people who want to be Michael Bay. I cannot explain this, but if you just told me Michael Bay directed this movie, I'd have believed you, because this movie is, from the beginning, is very... It's probably from the producers of Transformers. I'm almost certain I saw a slate that said it was from the producers of Transformers, which It looks like they just recycled the CG from Transformers with the spinning cogs and the glowing lights and the gears and the soldiers who are ripping out of shit, and they got blades on their arms and stuff. It looks like it really does look like a Transformers movie. So if you like those, you'll probably be sold for that one. But it's very ooh-rah with the jingoism, and the American military can do anything, even conquer aliens who are either sitting at the bottom of the sea or have come from light years away. But our weapons will still affect them. I don't know. Looks fucking terrible. But as for the Avengers, this movie had a lot. There was a lot riding on this movie. This was kind of one of those gambles you don't see from. I don't think. Geez, it's probably been done, but I can't think of an example if it's been done where they've kind of been building to this for 5-6 movies. With the Marvel movies up to this point, where they've kind of established each hero individually and then brought them together for the Avengers. You always kind of suspected. I think immediately after. Well, after the first Iron Man, I remember there was a bit after Iron Man where Nick Fury comes in and recruits him. But I think you knew they were serious after Hulk, where they kind of brought Iron Man back, and you're like, what are they doing here? And so, this was pretty bold in terms of movie making, shooting, hinting towards a sequel like 5 movies down the line. Like, we're gonna have something really big coming down, and so some would say foolhardy, some would say bold. To plan that there's going to be this movie at the end of the, assuming these movies didn't do well, because some of these movies were not very good. I thought Thor was just okay. I thought Captain America was actually pretty bad. I know some people say it's their favorite one. I don't know. There's no accounting for taste. I thought Captain America was pretty bad. I just thought it. I just thought it was very meh. Mostly because I thought they didn't really define Captain America as. His powers are so poorly defined, and so he's honestly the most two-dimensional of the heroes. He's very patriotic, he's very flag-wavy, and there's not a lot of depth to this guy. You kind of know how he's going to act in any given situation. There's nothing to this guy. I think Captain America is more defined by the people who serve as his foils. Anyway, so there was a lot of skepticism, I think, myself included, on what this movie is going to be like, and it's building up to something big, and it's one of those movies where, like, when I complain about Star Wars, they go, oh, your expectations were too high. So I don't know if people had guarded expectations for this one, or they were too high, or I don't know what, but this was really great. I think this was exactly the kind of movie that the Avengers should have been. And how best to describe it without spoilers? I'm not going to spoil much. I'm not going to give anything critical away. How best to describe it, and I hate going here. I know you think I love going here, but I hate it. I have to compare it to Transformers 1, 2, and 3. Probably just, we'll just say 3. I have to compare it to Transformers, because in a lot of ways, the Avengers is what the Transformers should have been. In the sense that people go, oh, you're too hard on the Transformers. What do you expect? It's a big, dumb action flick. Leave your brain at the door. That's why they like Transformers. And that's an excuse. That's bullshit, and you know it. Because something can be stupid but still be entertaining. Something can be stupid but still well made. There's a difference between stupid and poorly made, if that makes any kind of sense. There is a fundamental lack of tradecraft, of skill involved in the writing of Transformers, where it's not just stupid, it's insulting. It's insulting on many levels, not the least of which being, a jingoistic level, a racist level, a homophobic level, but just being poorly fucking badly written. And just on a case-by-case basis, you can compare this with Transformers very easily. I'm watching the Avengers, and the entire last act, I'd say the last 30-35 minutes, is one big action scene. One big fight in the middle of New York City. So I'm watching this going, Transformers 2 and 3 especially were a lot like this, where you had some big alien threat smashing a city, and it was about 30 minutes long. It was almost nonstop. And in Transformers, I said, it was just suffocating. It never lets up. It never stops. It's so chaotic. I can't tell what's happening. I can't tell who anyone is. I just... There's so much loudness and smashing going on. It's impressive, but I just don't care. So I started calling hypocrisy on myself, going like, why am I loving the Avengers so much? And I hated Transformers for doing... on paper level, kind of the same thing. And the answer is there's several answers. One, and I mentioned this a minute ago, in Transformers I couldn't tell who anyone was, and that was a common problem through every Transformers movie. It's just all a whirling mass of gears and metal and fists and gun blasts, and you can't... The only guy who has any... I think the only two Transformers who have any kind of identity were Bumblebee, who is yellow, and Optimus Prime, who is blue and red, And even he gets lost in the maelstrom of fists and stuff like that. The Avengers, the action is very clearly shot, very clearly edited, and it's always, at any given time, incredibly easy to follow what's going on. There's a distinct lack of the shaky cam. I could tell over the course of the entire fight, it was a long fight, but I could tell over the course of the fight who was doing what, why they were doing it, where they were going, what they were hoping to do, who were they, if there was something they were trying to get to, why they were trying to do it, the positions they were taking around the city, how they were working together. They were explaining over the radio, like, I'm bringing them here, go be ready to fight them. And so he would bring them over there, and then they would fight them. And it was so easy to follow, whereas in Transformers, everything was so fucking chaotic. And this is going to sound, again, very silly, but I knew who was who. Every Avenger, every one of the heroes, by their very nature, looks different, is different, and fights completely different. You've got Iron Man with his little beams and he flies around. He's like the only guy who can fly, really, except for Thor. And Thor looks completely different. And he has a big hammer, and he hits people with a hammer, and he throws lightning bolts, and nobody else throws lightning bolts. And Captain America, he throws his fucking shield, and he kung fu fights and shit like that. And he's a fucking blue guy, and there's no other fucking blue guys. The only guys who even kind of look remotely similar are Hawkeye and Black Widow, and that's because they wear shield uniforms, and I think you can tell them apart. They all, and the Hulk, a big green motherfucker who roars. There wasn't ever a point where I was going, who is, what the fuck? Who is this guy? And just for that alone, being able to identify, you wouldn't think this would be a problem, most movies, being able to pick out who the heroes are and who the villains are. The villains in this one were gray and they glowed blue. None of the other guys looked like that. So they all had their unique costumes, and the Transformers, aside from the two main guys, were all just kind of silver. Megatron is just kind of silver. The only way you can tell the bad guys from the good guys is their eyes glow red or their eyes glow blue. And you can't always see their eyes, and so, and the other thing is, you can tell each their fighting styles is distinct. Whereas pretty much all of the Autobots and pretty much all of the Decepticons, with a few exceptions, are just kind of fist-swingy, gun-shooty type guys. They hit each other, and then they shoot each other and shit. I think Optimus Prime is really the only guy who displays any kind of variance on his weapons. He has a sword that he sometimes uses, or an axe that he sometimes uses and sometimes doesn't. It's never clearly defined, Whereas Captain America got the fucking shield. Thor, he's got the fucking hammer. He shoots lightning out of the hammer. It's very clear. It's simplicity like that, where you wouldn't think somebody could easily fuck this up. But Michael Bay manages to do it. And I'm not making this about Transformers. I'm telling you why Avengers is good. Is because, in a comic book most times, it's very clear what's going on. Everything is framed right. every hero by their nature looks distinct, acts distinct. They all had characters. And you honestly, you wouldn't think that for this movie, where you'd be like, there's not a lot for characterization because it's all a big slugfest. It's not. There's room for character development in this movie. And this goes on to another thing that I think really separates this from the Transformers. A simple thing. But the Avengers is about the Avengers, whereas Transformers was about a guy watching the Transformers. Okay? And it was mainly about the guy watching the Transformers fight. To explain, you had Shia LaBeouf in Transformers acting really fucking annoying, and everything is just kind of whirling around him. There's no real investment in these guys because all we ever see is these weird robots, and we never know anything about Optimus Prime. We never know anything about Megatron except that he wants to rule shit. There's nothing to this guy. There's really nothing to Optimus Prime except he wants to shelter Earth. We don't know why. We don't know his backstory. We know that him and Megatron have a past, but it's never explained. Nothing. There's no development to any of the Autobots. Not any of them. And whenever there's even an attempt at character development with the Autobots, like Bumblebee, when he finally gets to be able to talk at the end of the first one, they go, then we just took it back. Then he talks in little sound bites again. So there's not even an attempt at characterization. Whereas the Avengers, we follow the Avengers. Captain America gets a backstory. Even like characters you wouldn't think get backstories, like Black Widow and Hawkeye. We see a lot of them, We don't follow a guy following the Avengers. There's not some kind of S.H.I.E.L.D. doofus. There's not Bob the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent following Captain America around asking stupid questions and getting into wacky hijinks with a couple of racist S.H.I.E.L.D. agents or like a robot or some shit. There's none of that. You just follow the Avengers. It's enough. It's... If there's ever an audience proxy, if there's ever a guy we need to ask the stupid questions, there's each one of the characters has an excuse to ask the questions. What is that? Who is that? Who's Loki? There's guys in the movie who don't know who Loki is, like Captain America. He's actually the guy we pretty much follow as the audience proxy because Captain America don't know shit. He was in a fucking iceberg for like 40 years. So when they go, Loki's come, and Captain America goes, who the fuck is Loki? They explain who Loki is. And in fact, at every turn, they are very, maybe even a little too much, but they are very, they're very cognizant of explaining the shit to the audience. So it's very clear what everyone wants and what they're doing. There's even if you haven't seen the movies, it's pretty, and, I think that's one of the greater strengths maybe is Thor. Even if you've seen the movies or you don't, you kind of know what Thor's deal is. You kind of even know what Captain America's deal is. And you definitely know the Hulk's deal and Iron. It's kind of seeped into the pervasive consciousness of people, whereas Transformers, that was kind of the 80s. It was a cartoon not many people really watched, and I didn't really watch it. So, and again, what the funny thing about Transformers is, I don't really know if Michael Bay even stayed that true to the cartoon. So even if I was a rabid cartoon or comic book fan and I know all this shit, I don't know if my fandom is rewarded in any way with the comics. I'm guessing actually not. Whereas if I followed the comics, I kind of know what the deal is with this movie, So I don't. If you need it explained, they explain it. If you don't need it explained, it's still good to have the explanation there because it's been a while, And whenever somebody doesn't know something, it's logically asked by the guy who would logically know what it is. They even kind of make fun of it at one point where Captain America doesn't get any of the pop culture references that are being made to anybody. They just start mentioning weird stuff like I don't even know what, but then somebody says like, I'm not going to have this guy turning my agents into his flying monkeys, and Cap goes, I got that one, I got it. It's a really good character moment, very simple, that shows you how out of touch this guy is, and they don't go deep into it. I've actually seen comics that go very, very deep into how out of touch apparently Cap is. I remember there was one really shitty one in just before the death of Captain America in the comics. That's not a spoiler. He always gets better. Before that, where some guy from like CNN or some shit calls him out because he doesn't know what MySpace is. You're like, you're so out of touch, Cap. You don't know shit. You don't know what MySpace is. Yeah, you don't know what you're not in touch with American ideals because you don't know what the internet is and shit. So, yeah, the guy who punched Hitler in the face isn't in touch with what America's ideals are. Fuck you, comics. Anyway, so just the sheer virtue of the movie being about the characters the title says it is amazing, you know. And when you get down to it, it really is just, it just gets it, you know. It's true to the characters. It doesn't go deep into the characters, but it gets them, you know. It plays off the strengths of every single one of the characters and presents them truthfully. And whenever there's action, and there's a lot of action, which is good, you know, if this should not be a melodrama, this ain't Shakespeare, although several characters talk like Shakespeare, you know, but this is one of those movies where it should be a hero mosh pit, you know, where you've got dudes fighting each other with really awesome powers, and you don't need to you can turn off your brain and enjoy this, but it is not insultingly stupid. You know, everyone's goals are very clear, everyone's clearly identified, and it's just really awesome action, filmed clearly so you can see the really awesome action, and it's all about pleasing the fans with what they want to see out of the heroes. They want the heroes acting heroic, they want the villains acting villainous, and they don't want... It's not stuffed full of shitty, racist, homophobic, bullshit comic relief that is not welcome. It's not stuffed full of this jingoistic bullshit. It's not stuffed full of American oorah crap. You know, and I'm not saying patriotism is crap. I'm not saying being proud of your country is crap. I'm saying Michael Bay is crap. And I'm saying this is really good. I'm saying The Avengers was really fucking awesome. Maybe a little overindulgent at times. There's a couple of really blatant hero shots for the trailer where they kind of swirl around and see the heroes kind of posing. But that's what the heroes do, you know. We kind of paid for that, you know. That's all I'm asking for, is we got to see the characters interact and you know, kind of wrestle each other for a little while, and then they team together and they overcome the odds. Fine, you know. It's a little flat, but that's a comic book, you know. I don't expect them to go into every single aspect of every single character's story. They acted like they should act, and that's honestly more than you can ask for more often than not. There's even bits where I was like, I can't believe they remembered that, because, you know, some people would have asked about that. Like, in the movie Thor, Natalie Portman, you know, the Thor and her had a thing in the movie Thor. And there's a little scene, just a little tiny scene in there where Agent Coulson explains, like, oh yeah, we took care of her, she's safe, you know, and Thor's like, that's good, thanks, man. And you're like, that was you know, it makes sense. He would ask after her, you know. There's, you know, Agent Coulson. They even follow Agent Coulson for character development. Guys you wouldn't think get character development, they get character development, you know. And so, like, it's kind of cool that way. Am I making sense at all? You know? I really don't mean to harp on the Michael Bay connection, but again, it's just what I'm talking about, where Transformers could have so easily been great had they bothered to make it right. And The Avengers, it's not an all-time classic movie. I'm not saying it's up for Oscars, but I'm saying if you like to see Marvel superheroes doing superhero shit and fighting bugs or some shit, like, this is a great movie. This is probably one of the best comic book movies ever filmed. It just fucking gets it. It promises action, it delivers action, and it's not fucking stupid. I can't believe I'm getting irate over this, but I'm just like, it's really, honestly, it's kind of remarkable how, you know, even the Marvel movies I consider not to be very good, like, you know, Captain America. I really didn't like that movie, but it got Captain America. You know what? It got him. You know, it delivered Captain America. I think maybe my issue with Captain America is I think the character is somewhat shallow. You know, a guy punching Nazis in the face. I've seen it. You know, I just think my issues with Captain America were just that, my issues. I don't think it was a bad. I don't think it was a bad movie, and that's another thing I think people kind of misconstrue about my reviews. Sometimes is I pretty much clearly explain if a movie is bad versus I will concede that it's an okay movie. I just didn't like it. You know what I mean? So like all the Marvel movies, with the exception of the Spider-Man movies, I think were passable. I mean, they got the heroes, they delivered the action, and you're not going to be disappointed with what it delivers. And I think the Avengers was you know, you've got all these very different characters, and you bring them together, and it's chocolate and peanut butter. It's great, you know. They don't fuck it up. And I think that's the big thing people were worried about is are they going to fuck it up with a lot of comic relief? And there's comic relief, you know, it's there, but it's not intrusive. It's not, you're not following, and here's another big thing. You like the characters. You want them to succeed. Whereas the Autobots act like dicks, and the human protagonists are fucking assholes. You know, even the characters who were kind of hard asses in this movie, like Nick Fury, kind of comes off as a real hard ass and a liar and shit like that. But you like him, you know. You want the good guys to win, you know, and you cheer when they succeed, and that's so critical in a movie like this, where you don't actually start rooting for the bad guys. And actually, they come close, because Loki is actually a really cool villain in this movie. Actually, I'm thinking of cosplaying as Loki. I've kind of got the hair, you know what I mean? No, but yeah, you even kind of like Loki, and I actually think if there's anything that is not that clearly defined, it's two things. One is Loki, because you never really get a grasp of what Loki's plan kind of is. Like he kind of explains, like, I'm going to let these guys into I'm going to make a portal, and you guys are going to come through, and you're going to kick everyone's asses, and then I'm going to rule Earth, right? And the bad guys are like, yeah, totally. And Loki's like, good, that's awesome, right? And so, you know, the bad guys, you know, the secret bad guys are like, fucking idiot. And Loki turns around and is like, I hope they don't fuck me when I'm, you know, I hope they don't just kill me when Loki kind of comes across as a little stupid in this one, but whatever. I mean, even he is well done, where he's not really a physical powerhouse. He's a manipulator, and they let him act like Loki would act. He's a manipulator. He's an illusionist. He's the god of trickery, you know. That's what he does. He tricks people, and they play that strength up to the hilt. So everyone acts appropriately. The one thing I really didn't like about this movie, well, one is a nitpick, but okay, two things. One is a nitpick. One, they couldn't get Ed Norton. Mark Ruffalo does a fine job in this movie. In fact, I think he does a great job. It is kind of distracting how they got everyone else, but they couldn't get Ed Norton. And I'm sure that bothers pretty much everybody from the director to the producers on down. I'm guessing Ed Norton was difficult to work with. I don't know, but there's some drama there, and I don't know what it is, but it's a little distracting. But again, nitpick. The one big thing I think is the worst part of the movie is, this is not a spoiler, the shadowy council of people in poorly lit rooms who secretly run the world. Nick Fury, several times through the movie, has to deal with the shadowy lit council of people in poorly lit rooms who rule the world, who are often like, there's people attacking Manhattan, and the council of shadowy people who sit in poorly lit rooms who rule the world says, fuck it, let's drop a nuke on Manhattan. And Nick is like, are you fucking serious? And they're like, yeah, fuck them. You know, like, we gotta contain this shit. We're the shadowy council of people who sit in poorly lit rooms who rule the world. And Nick is like, well, maybe if you left your poorly lit rooms, you'd see what's really going on out there. And they're like, too late, we sent a nuke, bye, and they hang up, you know. So there's like these five shadowy people who sit in poorly lit rooms and rule the world. I'm like, who the fuck are these guys? You know, like, these guys have never been introduced before in any of the movies, never even hinted at. You know, honestly, I thought Nick was the guy who ran things, you know, kind of behind the scenes. I thought Nick Fury was the puppet master. Apparently not. Apparently it's this group of shadowy people who sit in poorly lit rooms and rule the world that we're just now introducing, led by a fucking Powers Booth, who is a great shadowy guy who's sitting in a poorly lit room. But I'm like, who the is that like Martha Stewart in that one monitor? I don't know who the fuck that is. that it's not even in the comics, I think, is I've never seen the group of shadowy people who sit in poorly lit rooms who rule the world. They did that one time with the Illuminati, which was like Reed Richards and Doctor Strange and shit, Iron Man, ironically, I think. But like that, they didn't sit in poorly lit rooms and rule the world. They just kind of made decisions like sending Hulk into space and shit. But like, it was kind of necessary to have these guys at one point because shit happens and they needed to do something. But like, that was the one thing I thought was a little distracting. How they just kind of just, oh, by the way, these guys secretly rule the world. Maybe instead of with the shadowy group of people who sit in poorly lit rooms, I thought maybe they should just involve like, well, honestly, a really good guy they could have involved is General Ross from the Incredible Hulk, the guy with the mustache, the guy who wants the Hulk dead. Maybe he gets involved and he's like, "What? You set the Hulk loose in Manhattan? Are you fucking crazy? Send a nuke!" Something like that. I thought maybe Ross sends Hulkbusters down to Manhattan. That might have been a little neater than introducing the shadowy group of people who sit in poorly lit rooms, or even the president. Like maybe introduce the president in some case. This council, I just didn't buy it. Like, why are they sitting in a poorly lit room? Why are they all? Why sit in the fucking poorly lit room? What do they care? They're talking to Nick Fury. Like what the fuck is there? Like, doesn't Nick Fury know who they are? Like, and you can see their faces anyway. You can see fucking Powers Booth. The fuck does he care? Like, turn a light on, you asshole. I don't know. A couple other things that were just minor nitpicks, but they would be nitpicks in the comics as well. They make Hawkeye and Black Widow like really, really awesome characters. Like in terms of like their lethality and their ability to fight, which is good, and also a little nitpicky in one respect, in that the sense that if they're such badass ass kickers, what makes Captain America so special? So like Captain America is kind of this guy who doesn't really have much. He can leap around, he can throw shit, but like fucking Black Widow is this dynamite combat machine, and I'm like, why? She's like 5'5", weighs $125. Why is she just manhandling these alien warriors from another dimension? Is she really that badass? And I guess the answer is just yes. Hawkeye has got, even Hawkeye has like really kick-ass gadgets and shit like that. He's got, they do establish a little bit, but they don't make it. That's the one thing they don't make very clear about Black Widow. She has like these gauntlets that kind of have like these things, and they make her fist glow blue. So I guess they give her super strength or something like that. Okay, I guess I answered my own question. She can do super shit. But, like, yeah, Hawkeye is much more clear. He's got, like, trick arrows. Like, he's got a grappling hook arrow, and he's got an arrow that explodes and shit. No boxing glove arrow. I guess that was Green Arrow, whatever. But, yeah, it so easily could have been stupid, and it wasn't. And actually, let me put it this way. Let's just forget the Michael Bay connection for a second. You could go as far as go to Fantastic Four, the two Fantastic Four movies, to see why the Avengers worked so much better than Fantastic Four. We liked the heroes. The heroes in Fantastic Four were distinct, to be sure, but we thought they were assholes, and they were assholes. The Fantastic Four almost never fought any crime. They never fought any supervillains, really, except at the very, 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 very fucking end. And the supervillains were, the actors were, let's face it, poor. The villains were poor. And they didn't really act like they should have acted. You know what I mean? Like, Reed was a dick. The Human Torch was a dick. Jessica Alba was shitty in her role. So not a natural blonde. You didn't believe any of it. You didn't really believe any of these motherfuckers could fly, Even their costumes looked stupid. Doctor Doom looked stupid. The Silver Surfer looked stupid, and none of his powers made any sense. Like, Silver Surfer fucking punches Doctor Doom, and for some reason that heals his facial scarring, because we didn't want to have him wear the fucking mask, or something like that. It's stupid. All of it is stupid. And here's the big thing. In the Avengers, the fucking heroes wear their costumes. The villains wear their costumes. You look at the comic books, and Loki he dresses like a goof. He has these big fucking horns that come off his helmet. He wears this armor and shit, but Thor wears his fucking armor. So, like, you know what? They just put Loki in the fucking suit. They made it look good. Captain America, Shit. You know how easy it is to make Captain America look stupid? Watch Red Brown's Captain America. And so, like, they made Captain America look good here. When it so easily could have been stupid. And you know what? Even if he did look stupid, fuck it, he looks stupid. He's dressed like Captain America. I don't give a shit. You know, like, and so, like, in Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, they're hinting this whole time that Galactus is coming. Galactus is coming. He's going to eat the Earth. And so the one thing I was curious about in Silver Surfer was, what does Galactus look like? You know what he looks like? He looks like a fucking pink fart in space. You know, Galactus is a big dorky looking dude in a giant fuck off pink helmet. He's got these big things coming off the helmet. It looks ridiculous. But you know what? Just have the guy in the fucking pink and purple helmet in front of the camera. That's what we paid for. You know, that's the comic book movie. And the Avengers delivers on that. I'm not saying it's Galactus. I'm just saying, like, whenever there's a villain who shows up, he looks like the fucking villain from the comics. You know, Loki's dealing with these dudes from another dimension, and you get to see the fucking other dudes from the other dimension. You get to see the fucking bug dragon they bring through here, and you get to see the guy in charge, and you get to see the guy Loki talks to, and they look fucked up, and Loki looks fucking stupid with his horns, but he looks like an Asgardian. You know, like, you know, that's what he looks like. That's how he dresses. You know, it's. I'm guessing it wasn't comfortable. I'm guessing it wasn't really practical, but Loki wore the big fucking horns. You know, Thor had the big stupid looking hammer, and guess what? He's got the big fucking stupid hammer, and he flies by swinging it in a circle. Is it practical? No. But that's how it works, and they showed that. Whereas Silver Surfer copped out, and they put a giant pink fart that doesn't talk. You know, we wanted to see Galactus giving his "I will eat the Earth" and the Surfer, "You are my herald" and shit like that. We never see that. We just see like this big pink fart going, "Oh, stupid." And honestly, I think Green Lantern kind of fell into that trap too. But you know, to wrap up. This is, I think, really going to be one of those kind of, I don't want to say once-in-a-lifetime movies but it's one of those rare movies where a lot of things had to come together to make it work, and it does work. I don't know if you're going to see Avengers 2. Hopefully we do, because they do kind of hint at it. But you don't see this kind of cooperation often between these various intellectual properties. By that I mean, you are not likely to see a Justice League of America movie anytime in your lifetime, if ever. Why? Because tons of different people own the various intellectual properties. The guy who owns Batman, and the guy who owns Superman, and the guy who owns, you know, everyone owns different guys. And they're just never going to get together, I think, and come together on a creative vision that will work for the Justice League. Which is why the Justice League is always one of the kind of those fan fantasy movies that never gets made. And I think for a long time the Avengers was like that. Where, like, we couldn't even believe it was getting made, and we hoped they didn't screw it up. Well, guess what? They didn't screw it up. It's a great movie. I want to see it again, and you should definitely see it too. So, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I didn't let you guys down. Bye.